Hello and welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning back in again. This is the final part of the lesson that deals with the final part of the electoral process. In this part of the lesson, we're going to be exploring more about what happens between now, election day, right, and inauguration day. So this is from CNN.com or CNN Politics, and if you follow along to the reading, you should be able to fill out the chart accordingly. Here's the introduction before we actually get to the specific dates. Americans who went to the polls on election day don't actually select the president directly. They were technically voting for 538 electors who, according to the system laid out by the Constitution, meet in their respective states and vote for the president and vice president once the popular vote totals are completely counted and certified. These electors are collectively referred to as the Electoral College, and their votes are then forwarded to the President of the Senate, who counts them in a joint session of Congress after the new year. Americans have been refining this process since the election of 1800, which originally resulted in the Electoral College tie. The House of Representatives gave Thomas Jefferson the presidency, and that first disputed election resulted in the 12th Amendment, which modified the Electoral College process. Later in 1824, John Quincy Adams got the White House, despite not winning either the popular vote or a majority in the Electoral College. In 1876, the results in several southern states were disputed, and the lack of clear Electoral College results led to a deal in the House that gave Rutherford B. Hayes the presidency, even though he won neither the Electoral College nor the popular vote. That ultimately begot the Electoral Count Act of 1887, which is still in effect today. The whole timeline is below. What happens after Election Day? We've sketched out the legal mechanisms that lead from Election Day to Inauguration Day. Next to each item below is an icon that denotes whether state laws or federal laws are relevant. November 3rd is Election Day. Voters voted. Votes were counted. While many millions of Americans cast their ballots in the weeks leading up to the election day, either by mail or as an in-person absentee voter, U.S. law says Election Day occurs on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. Votes were counted across the country on Election Day. Next is November 4th, November 23rd. Votes are counted. Mail-in ballots had to be postmarked by November 3rd in every U.S. state, but they can be received late and still counted in many states. In most cases, they had to be received within a day or two of Election Day, but in Washington state, mail-in ballots could be received as late as November 23rd. November 10th through December 11th. States certify election results. Each state does a little bit differently, but starting a week after Election Day, state governments begin to certify their election results. Those deadlines can change in the event of a state recount if there's an extremely close result. December 8th. Safe harbor to determine election results and assign electors. Under the Electoral Count Act, this is the date by which states are meant to have counted votes, settled disputes, and determined the winner of their Electoral College votes. Governors are supposed to create certificates of ascertainment, listing the winner of the election and the state of electors. In 2000, the Supreme Court ended a targeted recount in Florida because it could not be completed by the safe harbor date. That recount would not have changed the outcome of the election, but a full statewide recount could have made Al Gore president. This is when it could become very important for Republicans that they control more state legislatures than Democrats, including in the most of the contested 2020 battleground states. December 14th. Electoral votes cast. In law, this date is the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December. This year, it falls on December 14th. 6 days after disputes are supposed to be settled, electors are supposed to meet in their respective states and cast votes for U.S. president. They certify 6 sets of votes and send them to Washington. Many states have laws requiring their electors to support the winner of the state's election and can levy fines against faithless electors who go their own way. December 23rd. Electoral votes must arrive in Washington. The certified electoral votes have 9 days to get from their states to Capitol Hill. January 3rd. New Congress is sworn in. Members of the House and new members of the Senate take the oath of office at noon, and this is the official start of the 117th Congress. January 6th. Electoral votes counted. Members of the House and Senate all meet in the House chamber. The President of the Senate, that's Vice President Mike Pence, prescribes over the session, and the electoral votes are read and counted in alphabetical order by 2 appointees each from the House and the Senate. They then give their tallies to Pence, who announces the results and listens for objections. If there are objections, or if there are somehow multiple states of electors put forward by a state, the House and Senate consider them separately to decide how to count those votes. There are 538 electoral votes, 1 for each congressman and senator, plus 3 for Washington, D.C. If no candidate gets 270, the 435 members of the House decide the election. Each state gets a vote. While there are more Democrats in the House, Republicans as of now control more state delegations, so it is very possible the House could pick Donald Trump even though there's a Democratic majority. It requires a majority of state votes to become president. The House has until noon on January 20th to pick the president. If they can't, it would be the vice president or the next person eligible in line of presidential succession. January 20th, Inauguration Day. A new president takes the oath of office at noon, and if the president-elect dies between Election Day and inauguration, the vice president-elect takes the oath of office and becomes president. In a disputed election, if the House has not chosen a president, but the Senate has chosen a vice president, the vice president-elect becomes acting president until the House makes a choice. And if there's no president-elect and no vice president-elect, the House appoints a president until one is chosen. So as you guys can see, that's the interesting timeline that takes place from the general election on election day all the way to and through inauguration day. If there's one thing that 2020 has taught all of us is that we can expect the unexpected, especially from the political world. So understanding moments and events like these can help us better understand for the future what happens between election day and inauguration day. Thank you very much for tuning in, and good luck with completing the rest of the lesson.